Good morning, I'm Sunetra Choudhury, political editor of the Hindustan Times, bringing you all that you need to know about COVID-19 on Friday, the 29th of May. First up, a look at the numbers. In just the last 24 hours, we've seen a rise of 7,176 cases. The number of deaths stands at 4,635. In the capital, there has been major concern because just in the last 24 hours, we've seen a rise of more than 1,000 cases. Which brings us to our top story. What kind of restrictions or easing will we see once this phase of lockdown ends on the 31st, that's Monday? Well, a lot of states have told the Hindustan Times they want commercial activities eased up even further. They say that they want schools and even religious places to be opened up. Schools, they are preparing for not immediately, but in July. In fact, Telangana, which has always been the first state to extend its lockdown, now says they will look at easing and of having renewed economic activity. In fact, they're also saying that they are going to allow film and TV shooting by the 1st of June. Everyone now waits for the center's guidelines to be released over the weekend about how to take all of this forward. But a lot of decisions have now been left to states. Perhaps one of the things to keep in mind is the kind of impact that easing brings. For instance, flight activity resumed this week. But we've also seen that just since it started, in 3 days, there have been 16 passengers who took flights, but when they landed at the airport and were tested, they were found to be positive. Now, these 16 people were on 7 flights, so the crew members of all of those flights, the people who were traveling on those flights, have been impacted and have to be quarantined as well. Now, seeing these kind of concerns, Karnataka has already said that they want the number of flights that come from hotspot areas like Maharashtra to be reduced. The next story that we have for you is the big story that we can expect today, that is of GDP numbers being released. Now, these numbers, while before the March GDP numbers wouldn't have been of that significance, but everybody is now looking at it to see what has been the impact of the lockdown, because in March, that's when the last week of March we saw the lockdown come in. Already they are saying previously the kind of estimates that were there, which is of 4.7% of growth, that would have shrunk to a major extent from 0% to 1.2%. Those are the kind of estimates. The subsequent quarters are expected to show much lesser and contractions, as the RBI has said. So we'll keep tracking that, and you can track that on hindustantimes.com. The next story that we have for you is perhaps expected, a survey by the Center of Science and Environment, which says that they can expect private vehicle use to grow much faster because of health concerns. Till before, about 37% usage of metro was there. Now this is expected to shrink to just 16%. The bus use, which was about 7% of commuters using buses, that's expected to shrink to 1%. These are, of course, figures pertaining to the capital, but they give us an idea about how public transport is going to be impacted across the country. The only good news is that perhaps we are going to see people also moving towards environmental friendly and yet healthy ways of moving around, which is walking and cycling, growing from 4% to 12%. And finally, speaking of masks, which have been advocated for use every time we step out, well, a Chinese study now says that in areas of high transmission, masks perhaps should be worn at home as well. They're saying that this is especially true of in the homes of healthcare workers and in homes where there is someone who's been quarantined, that they should be wearing them, especially in times when they're watching TV and others, because a lot of transmission happens before the symptoms appear, and that's why perhaps using a mask is safer. So looking at this study, every time you go out, every time you step out, and every time you're even in an office, you should be wearing your mask. Those are the news updates for today. Keep tracking them on hindustantimes.com.